The city of Birmingham was founded in 1871. Pilgrim Church was founded 32 years later in 1903. At that time, the state of Alabama was home to a sizable conference of congregational churches. However, there was no congregational church in Birmingham. On May 17, 1903, an organizational meeting was held to form Pilgrim Congregational Church of Birmingham. The Reverend Charles A. Breck came from Massachusetts to preach for the small group, and on June 28, 1903, was called as Pilgrim's first pastor. During that first summer, services were held in the vestry of Temple Emmanuel. In the fall of 1903, services were moved to the Pollock Stevens Institute, which was a downtown private girls' school. In 1906, Pilgrim began to build its first building at 723 North 19th Street, which is now part of the grounds of Birmingham City Hall. It seems the building was never completed, and Pilgrim continued to meet in a variety of spaces. 10 years later, in May of 1916, the church voted to discontinue Sunday's second service in order to merge it with the evening service of Independent Church, which was at that time meeting at the Lyric Theater. By 1918, Pilgrim's sense of identity had faded, and the members drifted away. The church eventually became defunct. However, its charter was never revoked, and the church was never officially dissolved, although the members were left with no active congregation for about 10 years. By 1928 in Alabama, there were some 29 white and 20 Negro congregational churches working in separate conventions of the conference. In Birmingham, First Congregational Church was active in the Negro Conference, but since the demise of Pilgrim Congregational Church of Birmingham, there was no active white congregational church. In early 1928, the Reverend Neil McQuarrie, who was then superintendent of the congregational churches in this area, was persuaded to come to Birmingham to assess the possibility for a church. Throughout the spring, a small but enthusiastic group met informally every other week in the Phoenix Building. The Reverend Jesse H. Dollar, a professor at Birmingham Southern College, assisted Mr. McQuarrie in getting together a small group of people who were living in the Birmingham area but were known to be members of congregational and Christian churches in other places. A service was held on May 20th, 1928, with discussion following, and on Friday night, an organizational meeting was held. A week later, on Sunday, May 28th, the first service of the newly formed the United Church of Birmingham Christian Congregational was held at the Central YMCA. In July 1931, the church, without a pastor, purchased an 11-room duplex at 1101 Graymont Avenue West. Also happening in 1931, First Presbyterian Church's Dr. Trevor P. Mordecai was experiencing opposition to some of his policies. As a result, Dr. Mordecai was ousted from the pulpit by the presbytery on August 21, 1931, which led to over 100 members withdrawing their membership that same day. Over the course of a week, over 100 more members withdrew as well. The withdrawn members wanted no part of an organization with a powerful body like the presbytery. They wanted a democratic church that was free from ecclesiastical and other denomination, and many knew the Congregational Church to be such a church, though they knew very little more about Congregationalism. Within 2 weeks, the group formed the Congregational Community Church. Members of United Church of Birmingham Christian Congregational joined forces, and the Congregational Community Church came to life under United Churches Incorporation. The Graymont Avenue house was too small, so they held services at the Empire Theater. In January of 1932, due to complications at the Empire Theater, services moved to the Strand Theater. In September of 1932, the Congregational Community Church moved to a former women's club called the Axis Club at 1819 8th Avenue North. A year later, in November of 1933, the church decided to drop community from its name and became the Congregational Church of Birmingham. On March 17, 1937, a meeting was held with the Congregational Church of Birmingham and the remaining 13 members of Pilgrim Congregational Church of Birmingham from 1916, and the two merged to form Pilgrim Church. 3.5 years later, October of 1940, the original Access Club building was demolished and a new concrete block and brick church was designed and built. In 1948, a vote at the General Council meeting in Oberlin, Ohio, created a union of the Congregational Christian churches with the Evangelical and Reformed churches of the country. This union became operative in 1957 with the formation of United Church of Christ. On Sunday, January 4th, 1959, a groundbreaking ceremony was held at a property purchased on Montclair Road, which would be the future site of the Blue Roof Church. The first service at the Blue Roof was held on November 15, 1959, and Pilgrim remained the Blue Roof Church on Montclair until 2008. In its history, there have been 2 times when a vote has caused a divide in the congregation of Pilgrim Church. The first of these 2 came in 1961 or 1962. A vote was held to decide if Pilgrim would allow black people to attend worship service. The vote was evenly divided, and the Reverend Clarence W. Baldwin cast the tie-breaking vote, which was a yes. This caused a split in the church, and several members left. In 2001, the second of Pilgrim's congregational divides happened when the church voted to become an open and affirming congregation. Some people left, but other people came to Pilgrim because of the decision. In 2008, a survey was done of the Blue Roof building, and it was determined that the building was sound and would likely survive another 50 years, but the cost of required renovations was much more than could be raised, even with the possibility of selling some of the land. After much discussion, a decision was made to sell the property. Once sold, Pilgrim Church moved to the Annex building at Southside Baptist Church while deciding on a new permanent church home. In 2010, Pilgrim bought the Mannheim building in the Lakeview district of Birmingham's South Side, and after extensive renovation moved in and is the current location of Pilgrim Church. Through social action, Pilgrim and its members are active in the community and around the world. The second Friday of every month, a group of volunteers cooks and serves dinner at the old firehouse shelter downtown. Once a month, Pilgrim members pack snack bags for the homeless, which are distributed through the soup kitchen at Highlands United Methodist Church. In 2013, we teamed up with Church World Service and created hygiene kits for refugees living in camps. We support BAO and have joined in the AIDS Walk. We support Greater Birmingham Ministries, Alabama Arise, and we volunteer at the Pepper Place Market. We have had teams working with Hands on Birmingham, and we helped Equality Alabama in their efforts to campaign against bullying in schools. We periodically host evening events and community forums with dinner and a guest speaker. We've had several well-known people, including Mayor William Bell of Birmingham and John Archibald of the Birmingham News. Pilgrim is a growing congregation, and we look forward to working with the other UCC churches here in Birmingham and building stronger relationships.